Mitch Sherman from the Average Joe Sports Show here with Chris Schmidt, Bill Doleman, and Elijah Herbel. On episode 7, we'll get into Nebraska's trip to Champaign, Illinois, and my trip to see the Huskers win 20-7.
And we'll talk about Tony White's message midweek having a big factor last Friday.
Chris Schmidt here, and yes, Nebraska is in the midst of a journey. That win in Illinois gets them to 3-3. What's the bye week and beyond look like?
And let's get into the coaching gaffe of the year. Mario Cristobal running the ball when he could have kneeled it. Miami loses. We'll get into that at the end of the show.
Welcome to it. It's the Average Joe Sports Show, dare I say, weekend version. We played with After Dark, but there was so much going on that we say hello to you on a Sunday. Mitch Sherman back from Champaign, Bill Doleman in his football lair, and Elijah Herbel back in studio, Chris Schmidt. Be sure to find us on YouTube with the Average Joe Sports Show. Can type that in to watch the show. And on Twitter, of course, the AJ Sports Pod. Fellas, Nebraska gets to their bye week now at 3-3, a hard-fought kind of hang-on 20-7 win against Illinois, and a whole world of college football to dissect. Mitch, good to see you again.
Good to see you guys. It's great to see you. Your faces on my computer screen instead of in person. This is a different look, a new look for the Average Joe Sports Show podcast, and it's a weekend. I mean, we can react to college football. I don't know. My senses are all thrown for a loop, but good to be here.
And it's fun because Schmidt's in his living room, Mitch is in his living room, Bill's in his football office, and I'm at work. How'd I get the short straw here? At work on a Sunday.
Remember that this is the Average Joe Sports Show home show.
Yes. The home show edition. We'll see if we're interrupted by a German Shepherd or a Labradoodle to my right as they're peering into the window, but I think we'll be okay. Elijah, you did a little whiskey fest this weekend. We played a little glow golf in Lincoln last night. That teed off at 7:30. And ironically, I putt better in the dark, Bill. So who'd have thought? And it was good. But want to get your take, Mitch, on your experience in Champaign and just kind of the mood, the vibe that was around Nebraska football. Pretty telling post game from Matt Rule, and he led off what he wanted and expected with his media sessions in the week leading up to Nebraska's opportunity on Friday night.
Yeah, it was businesslike. I got the sense from Nebraska on the trip to Champaign. Cold. It was cold there. Let me tell you what. After 96 degrees at Memorial Stadium for the Michigan game 6 days earlier, then I got to Champaign. I wasn't even in Champaign yet. I spent the morning on Friday in Chicago and then made my way down to Champaign, and I stopped in Rantoul, Illinois. Not sure what kind of a star rating I would give Rantoul, Illinois, but the Circle K gas station, when I stepped out of my rental vehicle, the wind was blowing 25, 30 miles an hour out of the north. It was spitting rain. It was cloudy. It was cold. There was this bite in the air. I tweeted something about how winter had arrived and then met up with some of the media in the press box at Memorial Stadium in Champaign, and they were fearful from reading my description that it was actually snowing in Illinois on Friday afternoon. That was not the case, but maybe about 10 or 15 degrees colder, and that would have happened. That's just how it felt, and it was like a perfect day for Illinois to pay honor to Dick Butkus, who passed away on Thursday, the great Illinois linebacker, Chicago Bears linebacker. And, I thought, for everything that I know about how the football karma and the football gods work, that after the Chicago Bears inexplicably won on Thursday night against the Washington Commanders as Dick Butkus looked over them, that Illinois was going to play their game of the season on Friday against Nebraska with the former Illini great. The statue outside the stadium was surrounded by flowers, but That proved not to be the case for Brett Bielema and his bunch, and we saw the start of that on the first drive of the game when Nebraska had a monumental goal line stand, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and walked away with the football.
I think that Dick Butkus made a deal with the football gods. Dick, you've got a choice. Either we give a solid to the Bears or we give a solid to the Illini. And since Illinois had a couple of wins on the season, I think football gods favored Butkus's Bears. I think that's what went down.
Mitch, is the ghost of Butkus off to your right, or we hear some thundering with the mics?
That's exactly what's going on. There's loud noises, dogs running in here. We're 5 minutes into this thing, and like all hell has broken loose here. We mentioned Dick Butkus, and you never know what's going to happen. But
somebody in your house is ready to run through a brick wall. It's as simple as that. We heard it just now.
We need John Facenda's voice and Butkus, but it was a bit of a black shirt tribute to defense.
It was. The Nebraska defense paid homage to Dick Butkus.
They did, and the goal line stand, the momentum. I know we're a few days removed from Nebraska's win, but you look at what Nebraska was able to do, guys, in the sudden change, and there was a lot of sudden change opportunity for that Nebraska defense when Nebraska's offense couldn't put the nail in the coffin.
I don't think there's any question that Matt Rule is probably breathing. It's such a cliche, breathing a sigh of relief on his Sunday night gamble to put those guys through a 1v1, 2v2 practice. Mitch, I know you talked to a lot of people ever since that happened, and I'm not sure that I read or heard of a coach or somebody in those circles that said, "Oh yeah, we used to do that all the time." That gamble was one that not many coaches are willing to make, and Rule did it in week 5 of his tenure at Nebraska, and on a short week. And it paid off. I mean, they won. I think he can sit back and take the chips he has on the table, cash them, and then enjoy maybe a day off before getting ready for Northwestern after a bye week. It was.
Looking back,
I think we'll look back on this week and then Matt Rule tenure at Nebraska and say that was a defining moment. Those 5-6 days.
Right. I wrote that after the game as I made my way across portions of Illinois to get to Bloomington, where I stayed on Friday night and was toiling into the 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Realm of Saturday morning. I wrote that I think that we were watching a defining moment for Matt Rule's first team at Nebraska. Now, we'll see. Will his first team become something that then sets the tone and creates a style and an expectation that carries through his entire time at Nebraska? It's premature to make that kind of a statement. But as far as what happened in the 5 or 6 days leading up to that trip to Illinois, you're right, exactly, Bill. It was a huge gamble because if Nebraska came out and laid an egg in Champaign after the way that it performed against Michigan and then tried to double down on all of this physicality when you're in week 6 of playing 6 consecutive games, he would have opened himself, I think, to a lot of criticism about whether he was pushing these players too hard and whether they physically weren't able to stand up to what the Big Ten was going to give them. So, I think what it tells you is that Matt Rule at this point, and I think moving forward, this will be the case too, he's okay if he opens himself up to criticism. He's confident in his decisions, and he's not going to make decisions based on what the most, what the possible negative outcome could be from that decision. I certainly think you've seen plenty of coaches in the past at Nebraska, even if they had that idea to have a full padded, hard hitting practice the day after a big loss against a team like Michigan with the game coming up on Friday, they would have thought better and decided not to do that and maybe sent a message to their team in some other way leading up to the next game.
It's the Average Joe Sports Show podcast. You can find us on YouTube. The AJ Sports Show is where you log in and type that in to watch the show. The Twitter feed is the AJ Sports Pod. That's Mitch Sherman with The Athletic at Mitch Sherman. Bill Doleman, the Pride of Fairbury at Bill Doleman on Twitter, and Elijah Herbel at Herbal Essence. Chris Schmidt here at Schmidt_radio. And with Rule knowing his team, not just the personality of it or taking the time to connect to its team leaders, the team leaders on this squad as they kind of navigate this year one journey, he is dialed in with kind of their personality, but he also knows as a whole what this team needed, and he deemed that they needed to go knock the hell out of one another on a Sunday night less than 24 hours after Michigan. What helped out for Nebraska with Illinois, it's just it was another lesson. He talks about lessons all the time, guys, and this was a lesson in, again, perseverance with the game not being perfect, the offense being inconsistent. They did have a spurt there where they were able to open up a 17-0 lead. You just didn't quite get the knockout shot you wanted, but your defense provided it. I'm saying all this to get to Nebraska's now at 3-3, and as Husker fans look at their garage calendars, you're searching for three more wins to get to that goal, Elijah, of, all right, can Nebraska get to 6? You've got one side of the football, Bill, that you believe in, and I think we all think is pretty good, that will help in that department. But you've still got a couple other phases, Elijah, to keep getting better at as the season progresses.
Well, credit to Bill. And Bill said it weeks ago that Nebraska has a defense that can get it to 6, and you saw it from the first drive of the game. We talked about Illinois potentially being a defining game in year one for Matt Rule. How about a defining moment on the first possession of Illinois as they drive it the length of the field, make it down to the half-yard line, and Nebraska gets a goal line stand? And I'm not sure if you guys got a chance to watch Brett Bielema's post-game comments. He opened it up. He was classy, talked about Dick Butkus and just how special it was to be the Illinois coach, to be able to meet a guy like Dick Butkus, a guy that he idolized growing up. And then he immediately goes to the goal line stand for Nebraska, and he says, and I'm paraphrasing Bielema here, he says, in my 15 plus years as a head coach, I have never had a team that couldn't pick up a half yard in 2 plays. Brett was pissed about that, and you just think about the momentum that Nebraska gained in that moment, because so many Husker fans, as Schmidt and I were at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, you're sitting there and you're watching everyone in the crowd there essentially just nervous as hell because Illinois just drove the length on the field of your defense that you feel good about. You thought, you know what, Nebraska's going to make a bowl game on the back of its defense. Then Illinois made it look easy on the first drive, and the concern level ramps up until Illinois makes it to the half-yard line. That defense steps up, makes a play. You could see the offense feed off of that momentum on their first possession as they drove the length of the field to go get on the board. A defining moment that I think is really emblematic of what this Husker team needs to be this year. It's, you know what, you're going to get enough from your offense. Your offense is going to feed off of that defense, and they need some help from that defense, but that defense is who's carrying the weight this year. And even whenever the chips were stacked against them, they showed that resiliency, as Schmidt was talking about, with their backs against the wall on the half-yard line. Not many Husker teams, in my estimation, over the past 7 years, would have had that mental fortitude that, you know, on the first possession of the game, we get backed up, it's the half-yard line, you're playing a physical football team in Illinois, you make the stand, you make the stop. That really changed the tune of that game, and I think Nebraska was well on their way to victory from that moment, despite the fact that it was still 0-0. That was such a momentum-building moment, and I think a moment that could be very, how do we want to put it? Just very important in the grand scheme of the Matt Rule rebuild, despite the fact that it was in a game that was 0-0. The game was still in contest. Like, it's a small moment, but the momentum you gained off that to go get a win in a game against Illinois, that could be a defining moment of Matt Rule's tenure. That moment looms large in my mind looking back at that game.
I'm still not convinced
another big
we can get in, but your point is well taken.
Yeah, I mean, a huge moment, too, for the offense in the first half, I thought, was when Matt Rule decided to go on fourth down. You talk about Illinois getting stopped on fourth down at the goal line. Later in the half, Nebraska's up 3-0. You know, it's a cold night. The wind is blowing in your face in that situation. You're at the Illinois 39-yard line. So even if you get the 4th and 5, the likelihood that you're going to score is maybe 50% at best. You know, you're not even in field goal range. So Nebraska had the opportunity there to just send Brian Buschini out, punt, try to pin the Illini inside the 10-yard line, play the field position game. Matt Rule talks so often about trading punches in the first halves of these games. You already had the lead. You already had some momentum. If you don't get it on 4th and 5, you're losing that momentum. And to think that Heinrich Harburg's 3rd and 5 pass was batted down at the line of scrimmage. So all kinds of reasons, I thought, not to go for it on 4th and 5 in that situation. But he showed confidence in his offensive guys, and it proved to be probably a bigger moment in the game than even the goal line stand, because Nebraska picks up the first down, it scores a touchdown on that possession 4 or 5 plays later, and then you get the kickoff that Grant Taggy recovers at the 25-yard line, and Heinrich Harburg runs it in on the next play. So it goes from 3-0 to 17-0 in a matter of minutes, just because of the 4th down call, the decision to go for it, the decision to gamble. It was a week of gambles for Matt Rule, and they paid off against Illinois. So maybe he'll take some more risks in the second half of the season as a result.
There's another moment that I don't want it to get lost either, and it's before the game. And I really think, and Mitch, you're down there more on a daily basis than certainly I am, but I think we're seeing the relationship that this staff has built with its players really start to blossom. And the Tony White press conference, when he met the media, on Tuesday or Wednesday midweek, that was not the same Tony White that we've heard since he arrived late last year. Dad was mad. Dad was disappointed. And I think the message was received by his players. And, they did not want to let him down. I don't think over the last 5 years that we saw that kind of resolve and dedication to a coach's message, like we did maybe this week. Okay, Coach Rule, this is the message he's sending us on Sunday night. We got to go. But listening to Tony White talk about the lack of effort that he had seen from his players, they certainly got the message. Now, the opening drive goes right down the field and gets to the goal line, but they do get turned away. And then, Rule talked about it so much in the aftermath of the game that, the defense is telling them to get out of our huddle, because we want this. We want to go out there. There are so many guys that have gotten a chance to play. I do think that's significant. You're seeing 25 guys a game that are getting significant snaps. And everybody's being given that opportunity and trust by their coaching staff, and those players are not wanting to let their coaches down. And it's not just Tony White. The linebackers, I think, have bought into Dvoracek. The line guys I know love Raiola. It just all around the feeling and the responsibility, the players and the relationship they have with their assistants. I think we're starting to see how much that means.
Yeah, that moment when Matt Rule talked about the defensive huddle, and this is after Anthony Grant fumbled, and it was just a comedy of errors for Nebraska on the offensive side in the second half of that game, when really it just needed a field goal at any point to make it a 3-score game, and it would have been essentially over in the fourth quarter. But they sat there with a 13-point lead, and they couldn't extend the lead. It was an Emmett Johnson fumble. There was a Heinrich Harburg interception. Then there was an Anthony Grant fumble, the third time that Nebraska got in range to score after getting gifts from the Illinois offense. So it was, one offense gifting the other team things, and then the other offense saying, no, we don't want to win this game. You go ahead and try to win this game. So as Anthony Grant comes back to the sideline and the defense gets ready to go back out there on the field for a fourth or fifth time, having to make amends for what the offense has just done, in the second half alone, Rule goes in to get these guys fired up. It's the fourth quarter. They could be tired. There's like 4 minutes left in the game. They've already been in this situation once this year after an Anthony Grant fumble at the same point in the game with a lead against Minnesota on the road. And the defensive players say, get your ass out of here. That's what they told Matt Rule. Now, that tells you something, I think, about the dynamic that exists between the players on this roster and their coaching staff. Because if it's not a good dynamic and there's not trust there and understanding and buy-in, then you can't tell your head coach to get his ass out of the defensive huddle and have that received well. Rule said, okay, these guys got it. And he got out of there, and then they went out and they got a fourth down stop to seal the game. So I'm with you, Bill, on how we're seeing these little things with this team. Before a game when Rule's got his arm around somebody, stuff that happens that we don't necessarily see in the moment that we hear about after games that tell you, just pieces of information that are happening behind the scenes that are putting this team in a place that position it well for the second half of this year to make that run at 6 wins, but in the bigger picture to be able to build on these things into 2024 and beyond.
Some guys I want to highlight as their season progresses. Giff was big time for Nebraska. He was flying around. Rule talked about having fun. Let's go have fun Sunday night, right? No one's watching. Need you to cut it loose. And I'm paraphrasing him, but you saw that from some key guys on the defensive side of the football. Gifford was tremendous. I thought Nash, you could almost envision him saying, bring it on 4th and goal, or again, another 4th down stop at midfield where the Illini, Brett Bielema is an offensive line guy, and he wants you to get that half yard of that 4th and 1. And Nash Hutmacher and that interior was big time. And then a young guy, Riley Van Poppel, he was highlighted as a guy that made a monster play to shed his block on that 4th and goal line stand for Nebraska, Mitch, where 3 guys that you've seen Giff really respond. And Luke, his brother with the Titans, was really proud of him. I saw his comments on Twitter that were really cool. One brother to another, one Husker to another. And then you look at the interior, a young guy and a guy who's really played a fabulous year in Polar Bear that's made leaps and jumps from when he was getting early snaps just 2 years ago.
Yeah, Riley Van Poppel is going to be a name to know going into next year. He's no longer in that 4-game category. Hasn't been for a few weeks now. He's playing as a true freshman, and that's what you have to do, with guys today, because just the way that college football is, even if you think it would benefit somebody to stay in that 4-game spot, like when Ndamukong Suh played at Nebraska. It's a generation ago now, but think about the benefit that Nebraska got by redshirting him. If you don't redshirt him, you don't have 2009. He's not a 5th-year senior. Well, Riley Van Poppel plays the same position, and he's not redshirting. But it's the right thing. You have to do it with college football today because these guys come in and they want to play. And Riley Van Poppel is going to make a difference for Nebraska this year. And then I think he's going to be a mainstay on that defensive line when Ty Robinson graduates and eventually when Hutmacher graduates. He's going to be the guy that they're all looking to. He's that kind of a player, and he's showing it already as a freshman. There are other young players on the defense who are doing that kind of stuff too. Omar Brown is not a young guy, but he's younger and newer to the Nebraska program than many of the others who are in starting spots. I'm always seeing Omar Brown, the safety, around the ball when they're doing the swarm tackle. When there's plays out on the edge and you've got to make a play in space and one defender gets in position to slow down a running back or a receiver who's got room. And then here comes Omar Brown to clean things up. So a really important piece for Nebraska, and especially important now that Deshaun Singleton is out for an extended time.
Average Joe Sports Show podcast going on, a weekend version. Be sure to find us on YouTube, the AJ Sports Show for YouTube, and can watch the video there, the AJ Sports Pod on Twitter. Guys, let's hunker down and talk now about Nebraska's chances for that bowl berth. And you've got a lot of schedule left. You got the second half of the season that's in front of us. And you have Nebraska that is waiting for Northwestern. They'll have a week to heal up, a week to get better on all sides of the football, all 3 phases. And let's talk about those winnable games / coin flip games. And you've got a wide open West with
That's
Iowa.
one way to put it.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. You've got a wide open West with Iowa and Wisconsin kind of off to the side where they're not invincible, but they're in the best position right now of anybody in the West. But that could change on any given Saturday.
Yeah, Iowa and Wisconsin are going to go at it in Madison this next week on Saturday. So that's going to be one to watch for sure as Nebraska sits home during the bye to get a sense of, I think, who the favorite is in the West. People just want to discard Iowa and say their offense is terrible, which it is, so they can't be. So they can't be I mean, hey, Nebraska's offense is terrible too, and we can talk about that, but at times, more often than not. But you can't throw out Iowa. It's because it's sitting there at 5-1 with a loss against Penn State. It's going to beat anybody in the Big Ten West, and it just continues to do Iowa things. 20-14 against Purdue this last Saturday, when Purdue came into Iowa City looking like a hot team in the division. Nope, there goes Iowa. They're going to win the game their way. Cooper DeJean running down the sidelines with an interception, almost another pick six for him. So Iowa is probably either in the driver's seat or right there in this division. I think for Nebraska, you have to look at this game, this next one against Northwestern. You have to look at that game against Michigan State as extremely winnable games and probably must-win games if you're going to get to 6 this year. And then finding that last win, is where it's interesting. Could be Purdue at home, could be Iowa at home, could be Maryland at home, which is a tough task. You could go on the road and win at Wisconsin. There's no more Michigan on the schedule for Nebraska, but three wins the rest of the way is still a big challenge for Matt Rule's team.
I think a wild card in this is Purdue. Ryan Walters has done a really good job, kind of quietly, having left Illinois, which is maybe one of the reasons why Illinois is having the problems that it's having, in addition to some fine players that left. But I'm certainly under the radar, which I think West Lafayette is for the most part anyway. I think he's done a pretty solid job, and that's a home game that Nebraska, I think, really has to be dialed in to protect home field. And you look at the matchup with Iowa going to Madison. I think that's a home field deal. If they're playing in Iowa City, I'd probably lean more toward the Hawkeyes. But the fact that it's in Madison, and I think Wisconsin's playing reasonably well, their loss is to Washington State, who, despite their loss yesterday to UCLA, that's still a really good football team with a solid quarterback. So their loss to the Cougars is, it's, I guess, forgivable. So that's why I think Wisconsin might be a little bit more in the driver's seat. They have Iowa at home. Nebraska has at least 3 winnable games on its schedule. The Michigan State thing, that's just going to get uglier and uglier as the headlines continue to be outside of the sports page, right? And one thing not to be lost, those guys are losing NIL money if you have not followed that at Michigan State, because people are pulling their dollars expecting players to transfer. So they're not having that luxury that other student athletes have around the country. I think that's a big deal. You talk about being demoralizing. You finally got some money in your pocket, and they're going to take it away because they think you're going to transfer.
What's happening at Michigan State is like a blueprint on how to have a team fall apart in the middle of a season. Fire your coach contentiously in the middle of a scandal, and then start ripping NIL money away from the players. You're going to see there's a 30-day window that Michigan State players have right now because of the firing of Mel Tucker to go into the transfer portal. And I think by the end of that, you're going to see some guys moving in there. They've got Rutgers this weekend. So as Nebraska and Nebraska fans sit idle, we talked about watching Iowa at Wisconsin. I think watching Michigan State go to Rutgers is also going to be telling for what's left on this schedule for Nebraska. I would say Rutgers is going to dismantle Michigan State. That's my thought on that one when we're still almost a week out from it.
And we're going to learn some more next week, but maybe this is overreaction to what I saw against Illinois, but I think Nebraska's defense alone is going to allow them to be in all 6 games that they have left on their schedule. And there was some downers on the defense following the Louisiana Tech performance and the Michigan performance, but I think that defense returned back to what we expected from them after the first couple of games against Illinois. And Illinois is not a great offense, but you look across the rest of Nebraska's remaining schedule, Maryland's probably the best offense that they have remaining, and I think the defense, how it plays, actually sets up well. I know Maryland loves to throw the football, but that's going to be a one-dimensional way that they attack Nebraska's defense. And I think you could say the same about Wisconsin, Iowa. I mean, I think Nebraska's defense and how it matches up with a lot of these teams is going to give them a chance in all those games. I'm not saying Nebraska finishes the year without getting beaten a couple of times. I think they are going to get beaten a couple of times, but I think that defense is going to at least give the offense a chance to go win a couple of football games down the stretch.
Yeah, Elijah, I was at Midway Airport yesterday in Chicago, and I wish I could give a good review to the Harry Carey's Shortstop Sports Bar in Terminal A, and the food was fine. But here's why I can't. Because I wanted to – you talk about Maryland and going to Ohio State yesterday and Taulia Tagovailoa, and I think he's going to be a problem for Nebraska when the Terps come into Lincoln in November. Nebraska should hope on that day that it's snowing at Memorial Stadium when Maryland comes to Lincoln. That would be a perfect setup and a recipe to beat Maryland on that day. Because Tagovailoa, if it's nice and the conditions are good for passing the football, he did it against Ohio State in the first half before the Buckeyes asserted some control. He's going to be a problem. My point is here, in getting back to the airport, which I know is on the minds of everyone.
I want to hear about it.
There were all these TVs above me, and I'm eating a hamburger, and I got like 2 hours before I got to go over to my gate, and it's a great morning for football. I want to watch Texas, Oklahoma, and they've got Maryland, Ohio State on one TV, Maryland, Ohio State on another TV, and then Missouri, LSU on a third TV. No Red River. So I asked if they could please take one of the channels that was on Maryland, Ohio State and put it on Texas, Oklahoma. And I ended up having to watch that on my phone because there was not a lot of cooperation there from the staff. So I got to see a lot of Taulia Tagovailoa, and I liked what I saw. Mm-hmm. He's good, and he's going to be a problem not just for Nebraska, but for all of the Big Ten East when the Terps go and play Michigan and Penn State down the road. Possibly, I could see even an upset in one of those big games.
Here's a problem for Maryland when they play Nebraska. The week before, they have Penn State, and the week after, they have Michigan. And in between, they have to make a trip to Lincoln, which they have, I don't know if they have ever done, maybe once, right? So the schedule is not easy for Maryland, as they try to position themselves for whatever postseason they might be looking at to come off Penn State and look ahead to Michigan and make a trip to Lincoln in between. That's pretty favorable for the Huskers at that point in the season.
But that is a game that Nebraska, they're going to need a guy like Deshaun Singleton to be healthy and back. He's been a big loss, and Phelan Sanford played great against Illinois. I don't want to take away from him, but you can see just the disparity in play between Singleton and Sanford. You're going to want a guy like him back in that secondary whenever you go play Maryland and how much they like to try to take the top off of defense.
Yeah, 28-7, Nebraska beat Maryland in 2016 in Lincoln. Just the one visit from Maryland. That's the team of everyone in the Big Ten. The only team that Nebraska's not had any problems with at all is Maryland. Even Rutgers, though it hasn't beaten Nebraska, has given them some issues. But Maryland 8-7 in 2016, and then Scott Frost had his most dominant his most dominant road performance for sure in the Big Ten. You have to take into account that Northwestern game 2 years ago at home, and talking about his the great moments of the Scott Frost era at Nebraska. Both games against Maryland for Nebraska. Mike Riley coached team in 2016 beat the Terps. We'll talk about that one down the road. But I'm with Maryland's schedule, and then also the weather when they come to Lincoln is going to be a big factor in how that one shapes up.
It's really telling with the Big Ten just how not only Maryland, but you look at Nebraska's November, you look at Penn State's November, Ohio State, Michigan. I mean, that final stretch before you get to December is a bit of a death march for a lot of teams in the league as you wind down a regular season. Good info there, Bill, on what Maryland's facing in November. I know Penn State closes hard. Michigan, Ohio State kind of is the exclamation point to the season, that final Saturday before the Big Ten championship game. And Nebraska's November they've never really been easy as you close against, and it's typically been that trifecta of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa, your three most presumably physical teams in the West down the stretch at the worst time of the year when you're beat up and injured and you're trying to get to the finish line. I want to make this a thing with the Mitch Sherman Airport review. from time to time, because I love it. I love hearing about Mitch's stories. Mitch, we've had you on the air when you've been shooed out of a quiet corner in the airport.
That was done in Dallas, if I remember correctly.
It was,
yes.
And Mitch is walking and talking with his laptop doing a radio hit for us. But what made you go with the hamburger over some other options at Harry Carey's? And was it a look, or just were you flat out ignored on the request to watch the Red River?
I was ignored twice. So I asked the bartender who took my food order, and I was unsure if he understood me, because he kind of gave me like one of those nods, like, yeah, we'll get right on that. You didn't order more food or drinks, so there's not really a whole lot that I'm going to do here to respond to you. That was kind of what. I got the hamburger because it was safe and it sounded good. And if I'm in Chicago, I want to have some deep dish pizza or something that really speaks Chicago, and have that opportunity to be able to do that and watch 3 football games at the same time. So I chose the football and said, I'll just get what I get on the food and take something safe. And the hamburger was fine at Harry Carey's. And then I asked again when my food came out. It was a different person who brought my food, and she had no interest. So they already had me with where they wanted. But it's disappointing. I was able to catch the fourth quarter thanks to Southwest Airlines of Red River, which was very entertaining, by the way, at 30,000 feet on the way back to Omaha.
Let's head there and talk about the weekend of college football. It's the Average Joe Sports Show. Find us on YouTube, the AJ Sports Show, on Twitter, the AJ Sports Pod. If you do watch the show, you can see cameos from Gertie the German Shepherd, as she is here for all of Dad's podcasts. And Mitch Sherman with us from The Athletic. Bill Doleman, NBC Sports, Pride of Fairbury, the professor. Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt, thanks for spending time with us. So what an incredible first quarter. Oh, what do we got here, Mitch?
Yeah, this is Scooter the Havanese. Since we're making this show about dogs, he's here joining me. He's a little more manageable than the German Shepherd, but he does love to lay on my legs when I'm sitting on the couch. That's like this. Good. So now he's moved to a different position. I
like it. Dolman, is Shaggy around?
He could care less.
Okay, he's staring at you like, "What are you walking me, dude?" But back to the.
I got Guinness in the fridge and a cigar on the counter, so he's happy.
Okay, I love it. Elijah, you've got a couple of pups as we turn it into the pup hour. You didn't bring it in studio with you this time, though.
No, that's a recipe sure to go wrong. Bella's pretty chill. The other one, Wyoming, is a newer face to the house, and she's still getting her feet wet with the house.
With the potty training aspect?
With everything. With just, okay. She was a former breeder's dog, actually, and she had to get a C-section, which I didn't actually realize. That if you're a breeding dog and you get a C-section, that's like, tearing out both knees. That's a real career ender. Like, there's not coming back from that. So my roommate Darren got a good price on Wyoming, and she's been getting her feet wet at the house, so we're getting used to her. She's getting used to us. Bella, though, she is just a 14-year-old dog that sleeps most of the day, so I don't think she would have liked coming in here anyway. She just likes to sit on the couch and take a nap all day with football on in the background. She's kind of the perfect dog in that way.
Yeah, I'm getting a hint. Next show will be out back to play fetch. The first quarter, back to the Red River, was insane. Entertaining, trick plays, big plays, and turnovers. And Texas didn't blink. You fast forward to the fourth quarter, guys, and what a finish for Texas. They're down 10. They get a touchdown. They get the field goal to go ahead. And then OU, that offense was beautiful, and minute 15 was more than enough time to go get the go-ahead win and touchdown, 34-30. Big win for Venables. We've spent a little bit of time last week focused in on the Red River. Always missed that game. I never got a chance to go attend it. Thought about it a lot, and I would love to do it, and it just never syncs up with a Nebraska bye week and getting down there to the Cotton Bowl for the Red River. But man, it it was on full display, and you had dejected Texas fan, and you had celebrating Sooner fan, you had Baker Mayfield, you had Matthew McConaughey. I mean, it was, there wasn't a lot of shot given to Oklahoma. I know the line wasn't huge, but Texas looked like they'd kind of proven themselves. They'll get a likely redo or mulligan in the Big 12 championship game against Texas. But yesterday was just incredible drama with that series.
Yeah, much to the dismay of Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner. They're probably going to have a rematch 20 miles to the west at Jerry World in December, and that will be a sour feeling for the Big 12 to have to hand the trophy. I mean, maybe Greg Sankey from the SEC could come in and just do the honors and give the trophy. But I hope we get that, just because watching the rest of the Big 12, I'm not enamored with West Virginia. They're off a nice story this year. Yeah. Kansas State, the defending champ, is lost at Oklahoma State on Friday night as Nebraska was playing. Kansas is maybe the team I'm most interested in, other than the two big money schools. So I want to see it again, because I want to see Quinn Ewers and Dylan Gabriel going at it in the way that they did at the beginning, and then and really at the end of that game, where Ewers led a fantastic drive to put Texas on top, and then Gabriel said, okay, I can do better, and he did even better in coming back and leading Oklahoma to the victory. Two of the better quarterbacks in the country that probably aren't getting the same kind of attention that you see, strangely, since it's Texas and Oklahoma, but they're not getting the same kind of attention that you see with the guys out west and somebody like Drake May at North Carolina. I think those two are in the conversation also for accolades come the end of the year.
A couple of things that stood out to me are more observational than getting into the intensity of the game, which I always wonder what it's like sitting on the aisle when you're looking across. So that's the Oklahoma section, and you're in the Texas or vice versa. But anyway, those are two coaches that just a couple of years ago, in the case of Steve Sarkisian, they're trying to figure out how to get him out of town already, right? He'd been there, 1 year, didn't go well. Year two was year three, but now he had them in the top 10, top 5, and they've got a really good football team, and they've got a really good recruiting class put together for the coming months, right? But that's a guy who, despite the efforts of some big money people to move him along, they've stuck with him, and he's got them back in prominence. So they've got a win over Alabama, and it looks like they're going to be formidable in the SEC. Last year, people in Oklahoma said, we made a mistake bringing in Brent Venables. They go 6-7, and he's already has them in position in the college football playoff conversation. They've got a terrific quarterback, which is the other observation I made. How much of a difference is it that a good transfer portal acquisition at the quarterback position, how big of a difference that can make? Oregon has one. Washington State has one. USC has one. Oklahoma. Ewers came back to Texas from Ohio State. You get the right guy in the right system, and you give your coaching staff a little bit of time, and things can be dramatically different very, very quickly. Nebraska, we don't know what Jeff Sims could have evolved into in week 3, 4, 5, but we know what we saw in the first 2 weeks, and they've not been in a hurry to get him back out on the field. But if Nebraska can find a gem at the quarterback position, the transfer portal, if that's indeed what they do, Nebraska's turnaround could be a whole lot quicker than people are thinking.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, all of the great quarterbacks, essentially, not Drake May, but most all of the great quarterbacks nationally came via the portal. And you don't think of Ewers as a portal guy because he's from Texas, and now he's leading the Longhorns. But yeah, spent a semester at Ohio State, former number 1 player in the country, transfers home. I mean, you look out west, it's not just Caleb Williams, but Bo Nix is out of the portal. Michael Penix is out of the portal, Indiana, of all places. All of these guys, and this is not the first year certainly that we've seen this, but it's on a level this year that I think is even higher than some of the more recent years. So that's going to be the question for Nebraska moving forward. The number one question, and Matt Rule says, enjoy the ride. Don't get ahead of yourselves. It's just not what people in Nebraska do. There's always going to be one eye on what's happening, what's going to happen in December and January, and looking to next year. And the big question for Nebraska in this offseason is who is the quarterback moving forward. Are we going to see enough from Heinrich Haarberg to trust him to lead the Nebraska offense or be a contender to lead the Nebraska offense going into 2024? Great story with the kid from Kearney Catholic this season, but are people seeing from him and as Marcus Satterfield and Matt Rule, are they seeing from him enough to think, all right, we're gonna put things on the back of this guy going ahead where he can give us, we feel he can give us a chance to be a team that competes in the new 18-team Big Ten. And I know I haven't seen that yet. When I watch him throw and when I watch him control the offense, I think Nebraska is going to need to look in the portal after this season. And maybe it ends up being Haarberg. The progress that he's made from last year at this time to right now is astronomical. He was an afterthought. He was not even a consideration for the coaches last year. Didn't go on the road, didn't get reps in practice. And here he is leading your team to 3 wins in 4 games. So incredible what he's done. But is he the guy in this era of transient quarterbacks to take Nebraska beyond 2023? It's a huge question that's looming out there beyond these next 6 games.
I think Nebraska needs to do both. I think you continue to develop Haarberg, and you're right, Mitch. The jump he's made is impressive. It's fair to say, keeps getting better while not perfect. And there were moments that he made a lot of plays to get Nebraska off on the right foot offensively. We go back to Illinois, especially with the shadow of their own goal line. He makes a great throw to Washington down the side to get him out of problems. And he made some key plays with his arm, the 4th and 5 and the 3rd down you referenced earlier in the show. What can that be? Can he keep grinding to make that the norm versus hitting? I hear you. No, you're good. Where you're hitting you eventually hit stretch on offense where nothing's working or you don't take care of the football. But if you're Nebraska, you keep watering him, absolutely, but you got to go shopping. And if you do go shopping, you got to make sure you find a guy that is going to be a difference maker, or Haarberg just keeps growing and doesn't relinquish control of that job. I mean, you got to do both, but you got to be right with who you go get in the portal. And Nebraska going after Sims, I mean, you've got the measurables, you got the athleticism, but you've still had a history of decision-making and big moments that, not that he can't overcome it, but that followed with him, at least early on this season, to Nebraska.
I didn't mean to
enjoy the ride.
Yeah, I didn't mean to
enjoy the ride
too much. But enjoy the ride with the coach you have. Yeah. And the players who come in, and I think Texas and Oklahoma, whether Nebraska folks love them or hate them, kudos to the Joe Castiglione and the people at Texas. Nobody wants to credit Texas Rounder, I get that, but they stuck with Sarkisian. He was a reclamation guy from through the Saban rehab school for coaches, and Mike Loxley comes from there as well. Mm-hmm. But give Matt Rule some time, because it's paid off for programs that have given their coaches an opportunity. Venable's turnaround is pretty remarkable. From 6-7 to where they're already at 6 wins, aren't they, right now? Mm-hmm. So that's what really stuck out to me is 2 programs sticking with their plan, getting the right pieces in the right places, and playing at a very high level. So why couldn't that happen in Lincoln with the investment that Nebraska's making? But getting back to the day in college football, it was a great day for Nebraska to be off on Saturday, Nebraskans, and to just sit back and watch some really great games and entertaining games all the way into the wee hours.
Yeah,
and who's not enjoying the ride? And who's not enjoying the ride today is Mario Cristobal in Miami. That I've never seen a finish like that. We saw a crazy finish, well, not crazy, but a strange finish at Alabama where they had to sweat out the final seconds at Texas A&M unnecessarily because they threw the football, an incomplete pass, and kept the stopped the clock when Jalen Milroe should have just downed the ball to have to play out a fourth down with A&M down one score. And then Cristobal in Miami saw that and they said, well, we're gonna one up you. We're gonna run the ball when we should down it, and then we're gonna fumble, and then we're gonna play some horse crap defense and let this receiver get behind the secondary for Georgia Tech and throw a bomb to win the game as time expires. What was going on with Miami? I mean, we think about all this craziness that's happened at Nebraska and how they've invented ways to lose games that seem unfathomable over the years. They've not done that. That's not something that's happened where it's been mismanaged and misexecuted that badly. So Miami is the winner this week in the contest to see who can be the dumbest team in America on a college football Saturday.
And it should be noted, you go back and watch the replay, I think he might have been down before that fumble.
Well, here's the deal on that. Upon further review, the officials have determined that this is the stupidest call in the history of college football coaching. We do understand that the player was down, but we are confirming that it was a stupid call. We are giving the ball to Georgia Tech 1st and 10. That was the review. Yeah, he could have been lying on his back with his pads off, game over, and they would have said, yeah, that's a fumble. Go ahead. You guys get a chance. That's what the review was.
Well, and then how about another fantastic game last night in Pac-12 After Dark? I'm not sure if you guys stayed up for this one. I did. I was at a spot in downtown Lincoln. Will remain nameless. They don't pay us any money, therefore it shall remain nameless.
Not yet, Elijah.
I swear, at least 25 people in that establishment had some action on Arizona covering the line. They were getting fired up watching that football game. And I'm not sure if you guys saw the video. I just saw this morning, actually. You guys see the video of Will Ferrell DJing the frat party before the game yesterday?
I did. Yeah.
He's got the backwards hat on and his sunglasses, and he's DJing. It was hilarious. That got the environment right for USC. Then USC, they have a gaffe in their own right late in the game after they get iced in a late game field goal opportunity. Terrible snap back on the field goal. They blow it. It goes to overtime. Overtime rules in college football kind of suck now with the 2-point conversions, and USC survives, but a fantastic game in the Pac-12 After Dark window that gets me excited for the first time Nebraska gets that 9 o'clock kickoff. That was a fantastic game to watch.
It was
Nebraska
good.
Going to be playing some Pac-12 After Dark?
I hope so.
We're going to have Big Ten After Dark. I don't know. It's up to the folks at Fox to make that determination. That'd be great.
I would love Big Ten After Dark.
But I would hate it. I was already working until 3:45 in the morning on Sunday with a 7 o'clock kickoff. Don't give me a 9 o'clock kickoff now.
Well, imagine the calls that Schmidt and I will get in on the post-game reaction show when they're coming in at 3:30 in the morning. Whoo, that'll be a lot of fun.
Gosh.
We may have to delay immediate reaction and just do the breakfast version.
We're not missing out on that reaction.
Let me follow up on that Georgia Tech Miami thing. You don't think that somebody's trying to get a yacht to Boulder to see if they can't? I don't see. I never thought Dion would leave CU. To be honest with you, but they're trying to figure out a way to yacht their way into, Boulder, Colorado, to try and get him to come back to Florida. Got to be.
After that, anything can happen. I think Cristobal has been pretty well received at Miami for the job that he's done of late, but there's no way to burn up your equity in an instant than to finish the game the way that Miami did against Georgia Tech. So I didn't get to see Caleb Williams on the 2-point conversion, but I watched some highlights this morning. I was out during Pac-12 After Dark last night. I had cashed it in 2 consecutive late nights. Did me in on Thursday and Friday night. Didn't make it up for the overtimes. Was that game at the Coliseum or was that in Tucson?
Coliseum.
Yeah, wow. How many people were left for the end of that? But Caleb Williams still has my Heisman vote. We do a straw poll at the Athletic from about October 1st on, and I've had Caleb Williams at the top the first couple of weeks, and he's going to stay there for me this week based on pulling USC through. But I did put Drake May on the ballot after his performance against Syracuse, and I've got Penix also on there from Washington.
Guys, we'll wrap with a little bit more Pac-12 After Dark and another late kickoff as 3 of 4 of us remember what Sun Devil Stadium's like and how loud that can be for a night game. And this goes many moons ago with Nebraska, Arizona State back in '96. But you had all sorts of maroon and yellow with one voice trying to will a one-win Sun Devils team over Coach Prime. And Coach Prime had some choice words for his team. I believe hot garbage is how he referred to his team. And he was upset. He's like, I'm sick of these guys. And he doesn't like the consistency level of his football team. What you did have, though, is Shedeur Sanders making a play. It wasn't quite to the level of what happened with Miami with worst-case scenario, but you had a breakdown and a bust in coverage, and Shedeur hit about a 40-yard pass to set up Colorado for the game-winning field goal. And as soon as that game-winning field goal went through, the 14 seconds ran off. Shedeur had a nice run. Phone folks and video crew trailing him as he was able to go show his Rolex to the Arizona State student section. And they were not amused. It was pretty good. It was pretty good trolling by Shedeur, and the Buffs get to 4-2.
Shedeur has a moment that I think can capture the imagination of everyone with his greatness in leading Colorado down the field at the end for the winning score, and then has a moment immediately to follow that maybe will do the exact opposite. I didn't see a lot of positive reaction to his antics in front of the Arizona State students showing his Rolex, which was not actually on his wrist at the time. But I guess that's that's the give and take with this Colorado team. Now they're 4-2. Deion's got his first Pac-12 win. They're going to continue to be a factor. They're going to probably go to a bowl game this year. We're going to be talking about Colorado ad nauseum. Not us, but people nationally through the season, into the offseason, into next year. By the time they come to Lincoln next year, people will still be sick of it. So you get the good on the last play of the game, and you get the bad, which is running to the Arizona State. Arizona State was 1-4 coming into this game, so maybe be a little more humble after needing a last-second win to get out of Tempe.
Good advice.
They certainly know how to put on a show. We'll just leave it at that. They know how to put on a show out there.
Colorado, that team, it's made for social media, I'll just say. Didn't hate the moment. I'm kind of with you, like, Arizona State's bad, but at the same time, you want to have fun after a win. That's how you have fun, is you go get retweets and whatnot on social media because you're flashing the Rolex, even though it's not on to the Arizona State student section. That's how you want to celebrate a win. You know what? You've earned that right. You did get the win. You go do it. I wouldn't do it. I don't think any of us would like it if a Husker player were to do something similar. But at the end of the day, you won the game. You've earned the right to go do that, I guess.
I hope Shedeur can get an NIL deal with Rolex, because we all know he needs it.
Yeah. On that note, we are going to tip the cap and say thanks for checking us out. Hey, the Average Joe Sports Show. YouTube, watch the show there. The AJ Sports Show is what it's titled under. The AJ Sports Pod on Twitter/X. And more adventures next time during the bye week with Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, Bill Doleman, and Elijah Herbel. Chris Schmidt saying so long. Thanks for checking in. Tell your friends about the Average Joe Sports Show, the pod, and get subscribed today. We'll be back at you later on in the week.